my agency's gifting policy?
Yeah, I remember however many years ago, there being this whole brouhaha over agencies accepting gifts.
Oh, that. Well, that wasn't about gifts from clients.
Oh, that's great. I asked because I wanted to get you a little something as a thank you for getting us so far under budget this quarter. My CMO is going to be over the moon.
I see. Well, first of all, that's very kind of you, but I actually need to kind of talk to you about that, I think.
That sounds ominous.
Okay, so you know how there was that crackdown on made-for-advertising sites last year?
Are we falling short of our D&I commitments again?
Well, yes, but that's not why I bring this up. Now that the MFA panic has calmed a bit, there's actually a new type of ad inventory that we're supposed to be cutting back on called cheap reach.
Cheap reach?
Yes, cheap reach.
Cheap reach is bad.
I guess so, yes.
Because cheap and reach are my CMO's two favorite words.
Totally, they are the best words, but apparently those two words together aren't so good.
But the whole goal is to reach as many people as possible for as little money as possible.
I know.
Okay. So what's this cheap reach thing?
Okay, the definition of cheap reach is a little broad at the moment. Fortunately, Digiday's media editor, Kayleigh Barber, has reported on this new boogeyman for online ad buyers and is able to distill what it is.
Cheap reach is kind of this class of bad ad units that are used on premium publisher sites. So it's kind of like the crappier ad units that you would see at the bottom of a news article, whether that's content recommendation widgets or something like comment section ad placement, or when you have to click through a slideshow and an ad pops in within that unit. It's the ones that are somewhat defined as like chronically unviewable. So just really hard to capture eyeballs on because of their location on a web page.
Now, you may be thinking, wait a minute, didn't the online ad industry already go after unviewable inventory like a decade ago? And you'd be right. It was a decade ago when the Media Rating Council released its viewability standard for advertisers to block themselves from buying ads that no one saw.
It's, I don't think necessarily new. It's more of a call to action for buyers to be aware of this inventory kind of really persisting. And the fact that there are a lot of publishers that have high proportions of their ad units kind of qualifying as cheap reach.
This call to action is coming from Jounce Media, the consultancy that helped to ignite last year's mania around made-for-advertising sites. The MFA crackdown ended up including not just sites set up as arbitrage plays, but also legitimate publishers that just so happen to sell the same kind of low-quality inventory.
Instead of, blowing out the definition of MFA to include like these premium publishers that have partnerships with, Outbrain or Taboola or Kinetics, Jounce is one of the consultancies that have made the secondary kind of focus on cheap reach to keep it unbucketed from MFA, but also have, the ability to point a finger at this inventory and say, like, this is not where your money is being best spent.
That may be easier said than acted upon, though. With MFAs, advertisers have been able to block buying ads from sites at the domain level. But with cheap reach, the challenge is this inventory is sold by otherwise premium publishers. So to avoid it, brands and agencies have to figure out how to excise it from their ad buys.
Right now, the buyers I've spoken with have said like they are taking it into consideration, but it's not as cut and dry of an approach as like dealing with MFAs was. So where MFAs, there was a lot of inclusion lists that were created to make sure that MFA inventory was not included in any programmatic buys. You can't really do that with cheap reach inventory. It has to be a little bit more of a high touch approach. You have to either create these custom algorithms that'll buy in the open market for you, avoiding this type of inventory, or you just have to be really diligent about reviewing every single aspect, whether it's like the ad unit size or the location or the way it's measured. You have to be very diligent about checking those details in order to avoid cheap reach.
Of course, that's all assuming cheap reach inventory is something advertisers can and want to avoid.
One buyer told me that they consider kind of all display advertising cheap reach, and therefore it's just part of how they buy programmatic or display ads in general.